So I absolutely love Only Murders in the Building, and I think it's really exciting solving mysteries with these three characters. I feel like they have just casted them absolutely brilliantly, and the way in which this show just comes together is just so good. That being said, I don't think season 3 and season 4 are as good as seasons 1 and season 2. I don't think the whole Hollywood thing worked that well, if I'm being honest, and I also think that the whole film within a show could have and should have been so much stronger. I mean, I was thinking that it would be similar to Scream 3, which I think did the whole film within a film plot in such a good way. And I do think if they had borrowed a little bit more from that, they could have made this season a lot stronger. And I think the main reason for that is that the supporting cast just weren't written that well. And I think time and time again, audiences have just shown that the obsession that Hollywood has within Hollywood is kind of only really within that vacuum, and actually most audiences aren't really that interested. I thought it was an interesting decision this time to have the final episode not have loads of twists and turns, but actually be very stripped back and actually be really emotionally driven. And I do actually think that worked out quite well, as of course the murder in this season is all to do with Saz Pataki, which is so close to Charles's heart. So you can really see all of that across this season. But in particular, I really loved Mabel's line of, you know, Saz wrote a love letter pretty much to her number one, which is of course Charles. And therefore, Mabel kind of feels that, you know, Hollywood isn't really for her, as they are always trying to monetize it and aren't really that interested in emotion. So let's talk about the killer revelation. So it's revealed to actually be Marshall/Rex. And I thought the way in which they explained all of it did actually kind of make a lot of sense, as this guy is not able to crack it as a writer or as a stuntman, and then he is seeing that Saz is able to, from his perspective, just have it all. I mean, as viewers, we obviously know this is not the case, but from Rex/Marshall's perspective, she is able to have it all, as she is able to be a really beloved and successful stunt person. She is cracked writing a whole script on her first ever go, whereas from his perspective, he is getting a lot of pressure and criticism from his father, and he just can't be successful in any avenue that he is trying. And so, when he should be a friend, he ends up betraying the one person, the only person really, that has been supporting him and actually has his back the entire time. And I actually think this is excellent social commentary in terms of you should be really, really careful about who the people are that you really let into your life and who you share all of your vulnerable personal moments and best moments with, as you never really know if somebody truly is happy for you or not. And I think it's really interesting, as of course Saz is a very successful person, but from her perspective, she was always having rose-tinted glasses on when she was looking at Charles, as he has had a very successful acting career and has now been able to pivot and have a very successful podcast career. But instead of being overcome by jealousy, she has kind of written a whole script and love letter, and she was going to get his permission before she was going to shop it around. But then Marshall/Rex, I mean, I don't know what on earth overcame him. Maybe he just got lost in the moment, as of course Saz is going to be like, what are you doing? This is actually my script. And I think she was actually being pretty nice and forgiving when she did eventually confront him, but then all of his dark, sinister thoughts got the better of him, and he unfortunately went and killed Saz. I do think there are a couple of loose ends though. So for example, I think it's interesting they decided not to go with what it seemed as if was going to be the case at the end of the season 3 finale, in terms of the killer was trying to get Charles but then accidentally got Saz. And also the fact that this killer has always kind of been there in a mysterious way from season 1. Maybe they'll come back to that particular moment in season 5. And although it was another interesting decision, as instead of the killer kind of being wheeled off by the police right at the end, this time Jan killed the killer and Jan was the person being wheeled off right at the end. I guess the reason that they did that is, of course, Saz is so integrated from an emotional perspective into the fabric of the show and the lead characters. Next season will be all around poor Lester. I thought that was so sad, as he was always such a nice character to everybody. I thought it would have been Uma or Loretta, but I guess it was a little bit too obvious to be Loretta. And murder mystery shows and films, they always focus on the person that you least suspect. And I love this new character, Sophia, super classy and seems to have a bit of a backstory involved with the Arconia. So I cannot wait to see more of this character. I feel like she, and hopefully all of the supporting new characters, will be so much better and will be a lot more intrinsic to the plot of the Arconia and will just be more interesting characters like they were in seasons 1 and season 2. And speaking of Loretta, maybe they kind of have written her off in a bit of a nice way, as she is kind of in New Zealand now, so maybe she'll come back in season 6, as I heavily doubt that Oliver, Charles and Mabel will be having loads of scenes in New Zealand at the same time. So let's go through all of the main players now. So I thought Steve Martin did a formidable job as Charles Hayden Savage. I feel like the last couple of seasons he hasn't been at the top of his game, as I feel like Martin Shaw always overshadows him, but but the fact that this season the murder is so close to this character, he was really able to be front and center. And he had some brilliant moments, for example, when he can't express all of his anger towards the Westies when it seems as if they are going to be revealed to be the killers. And also when he's trying to explain his murder board and he's like, oh no, don't look at this bit, oh no, don't look at this bit. So I feel like from a trio perspective, all of them brought their A game, which was really, really good. And speaking of Martin Short, he is just such a scene stealer as Oliver Putnam. And I just think all of the Loretta being really jealous of her. And I thought he was really hilarious sharing scenes with Zach Galifianakis and Melissa McCarthy's Doreen being really interested in him. Oliver was just absolutely brilliant and really, really witty as always. Selena Gomez is almost flawless as Mabel. I feel like she's not as involved in terms of the main plot as she has been since season 1. So I feel like in the next season, I hope they give her more younger characters to interact with, but instead she was really focused on all of the murder solving, and her main plot was the fact that she can't afford to be on the east side anymore, so she joined the Westies, which really did amplify all of her murder solving abilities. I loved having Eva Longoria over here, loved all of the references to Desperate Housewives in her career so far, all of her brand deals. I think she was absolutely hilarious, and I loved the fact that they brought back Paul Rudd as Glenn Gubbins this time, and unfortunately he died as well. Meryl Streep, really, really cool to also have her as a bit of a recurring character, and she is now a very successful actress, and the jealousy that Oliver Putnam has towards her I thought was really, really funny. Molly Shannon as Bev, the producer in Hollywood at Paramount Studios of the new Only Murders in the Building movie, I thought she was really, really funny, and the only character really who was bringing a bit of humor from the whole Hollywood angle. I thought the twins didn't really work at all, and the Westies, there was always just something missing with them. I feel like they could have made them so much more interesting as having characters that are on the other side of the Arconia building looking in envy at these guys all the time. It could have been so much better than what they ended up doing. Love the Melissa McCarthy episode of being Doreen, Charles's long-lost sister. She definitely had loads of hilarious moments with all of the dolls, but also some emotional moments in terms of being really isolated, not only from Charles, but also from a lot of other characters as well. If anything, I hope that they do bring her back in the future. And you can tell that they film certain scenes with certain characters, for example, the detective, all in one go, and then just spread certain moments out across this season. So even though season 4 of Only Murders in the Building was really, really enjoyable, I still don't think they've reached the peak that they had with season 1 and season 2. Hopefully in season 5 they'll be able to return back to that, but as far as season 4 is concerned, I thought it was really enjoyable, really watchable, a great killer review. I do think they could have packed in a little bit more of a punch in the final episode, but as a whole they balanced drama and comedy really, really well, and so for all of those reasons I'm going to give it a solid 7 out of 10. Now I'll love to hear from you. What did you think of Only Murders in the Building season 4? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.